It would be an interesting exercise to get the average person to explain where the Isle of Man was and what the Isle of Man meant to them. Some may well think of the Manx cat without its tail. Some may think of its rather archaic transport system of steam engines, electric trains, electric trams, trams which are horse-drawn, beautifully maintained rolling stock, small towns with central squares, and some, of course, may consider the motorcycle activity which happens in a big way on the Isle of Man twice each year. The Isle of Man considers itself to be the motorcycling capital of the world. But this little video is not concerned with any of those things. It's concerned really with the island and some of the beauty, natural beauty and man-made beauty which exists there. The approach to the Isle of Man by sea starts for most people in Liverpool with a ferry down the Mersey, and their first view of Douglas is this wonderful curving promenade, and this is the dock terminal facility in Douglas for both incoming and outgoing freight and passenger traffic. What looks like a submarine in the bay there is actually a stone edifice of some description, a fortification. Douglas also boasts the main railway station, which is a very imposing edifice when one considers that there are only 4 trains in and out each day under the normal timetable. Castletown is the old capital of the island, and this castle is of Elizabethan heritage. Nowhere on the island is very far from the sea, and this is the little harbour in Castletown, which is used mainly for leisure activities. And this is a rear view of the castle complex and the central town square, which resonates to the sound of motorcycles several times a year, as I've already implied. And one such event was in progress when I took these particular photographs. But the locals are very tolerant and the businesses benefit enormously, I'm sure. Peel is the home of the Manx kipper trade. The herrings these days, I think, are imported rather than being caught locally. Peel too has its ruined castle at one end of the bay. And the sweeping curve of the bay is very impressive. But the sea on the Isle of Man is extremely cold, and there are never very many people taking advantage of the water. This twin-masted boat was in the harbour on this occasion with the castle as its backdrop, and this particular motorcyclist was also enjoying the sunshine whilst we were there. Ramsey has a problem. All its people are 8 feet tall and significant reconstruction work is going on in the town to accommodate them. This is the foreshore of Ramsey's little harbour, which is rather more industrial than that one in Peel. Cregneash, a little village on the southern tip of the island, is a jewel in the Manx crown. It's an ancient village which has been adopted by the Manx Museum, which owns most of the properties, with the intention not only of maintaining the houses but also attempting to preserve the lifestyle which existed in those houses over the past centuries, so that Manx crafts which have been carried on for centuries should not be lost. The postbox has Victoria's cipher on it. The Queen's role in relation to the Isle of Man is very strange. She is actually Lord of Man. She is not the Queen, because the Isle of Man is not part of the United Kingdom. The old thatched roofed buildings have changed in use over time. This was once the school, but by the same token the school has also been housed in the church, and this is a means of fixing the thatch to the walls of the building. Some of the houses are more substantial. The village is still a working village, a farming village. It's also a worshipping village, as the church bears witness to. Beautifully maintained, very neat little stained glass windows in keeping with the general size of the building, but it was a credit to the little community which still lives there. This was a poignant little poem penned by a Battle of Britain pilot who didn't return. On the very southern tip of the island is a causeway between the main island and a small island called Calf of Man, which is a bird sanctuary. I don't think that anybody actually lives on the island full time. The island can be seen quite clearly offshore at this point. This little memorial is a memorial to those who've given their lives in protecting those who use the sea in their daily business. It's a wonderful natural spot. Port Erin, just round the corner from Cregneash on the southern tip of the island, has a wonderful natural harbour and beach, which has always been popular with holiday makers despite the inclement water temperature. Certainly the beach on this particular day in 2002 was well populated. Nigel Mansell, the Formula One racing driver, had a bungalow up on that headland, although he no longer owns it. This is a plaque on the wall near the lifeboat station, and the lifeboat, of course, over the centuries has been very active. One of the features of Port Erin are houses with gardens that stretch right down to the beach, beautifully maintained gardens on about 8 or 10 little cottages. Quite a unique feature, I think. Here's another of our Victorian post boxes at the bottom of the slope leading back up to the hotel complex on the main promenade. These hotels were obviously very fine establishments in their heyday, but still struggle to survive commercially. in today's harsher economic climate. There you can see the garden stretching down to the sea. This is Bradda Head on the northerly headland. Bradda Head has a folly which is shaped like the internals of a lock. It was designed by a locksmith. And evening draws in this particular shot. And there's Bradda Head in silhouette. And the sun has suddenly come out again. Here's Bradda Head in true silhouette, and just across on the horizon are the mountains of Mourne on the island of Ireland. And fireworks to bring our visit to Port Erin to a close. The bay of Port St Mary faces east, whereas that of Port Erin's faces southwest. As one leaves Cregneash, one sees this view across the Port St Mary Bay. Port St Mary was also a significant fishing port at one time for herring, but no longer enjoys quite the same level of activity. This is the crossing keeper's cottage on the railway from Douglas to Port Erin, where it passes through Port St Mary. And here's a rather clearer view of the Port St Mary Bay. The village of St John's is the centre of the ancient government of the island. The Tynwald is the name of the ancient Manx Parliament, and bills enacted in that Parliament are read aloud to the public each year on Tynwald Mount. This building has no significance in that respect. This is an old mill that was being refurbished the first year I went, and the progress a year hence is plain to see. This is the open countryside in the little hamlet of Ballabeg, with one of the Isle of Man steam railways trains running through on its way to the village of Colby, and from there to Port St Mary and Port Erin. Snaefell is the mountain of some 2,000 odd feet which dominates the north central part of the island, but I've chosen to show some of the other desolate areas not necessarily absolutely local to Snaefell, but nevertheless they give a picture of some of the less well populated parts of this wonderful island. An island of hills, valleys, streams, sheep, stone walls, rain, wind, sunshine. This is a little rank of houses and the village pub, the Raven, in the centre of the village of Balaf on the main road from Douglas to Ramsey. This is where my expertise lets me down. I'm sure those of you who are interested can identify these flowers. These particular flowers were clinging to a cliffside overlooking Douglas Bay, so they were obviously particularly hardy plants. And this is a very young jackdaw, I would think. And no, the cat was not stalking him. I think the photographs were taken probably 10 miles apart, but there you can see the classic Manx cat without its tail. No picture of the island would be complete without some pictures of the folk that we mix with on our trips there. Some of them are locals and some of them are my friends who visit with me. All very relaxed, everybody with a smile on their face and a common interest in enjoying themselves and enjoying the motorcycling activity which goes on around them. Those of you who've seen my film of the Isle of Man transport system will realise that one of our traditions is a ride on the train, or several rides on the train, between Port Erin and Douglas, and this is our little group in one of the beautifully maintained carriages on that particular train. And this is George Formby leaning on his particular lamppost. His claim to fame being that he made a film called No Limit, portraying motorcycle racing on the Isle of Man. And here we are back again in our hotel lounge with our friends and hotel staff who make our stays there so very enjoyable. Jeff here was reliving his youth in a motorcycle museum on a motorcycle which was identical to the one he owned in his youth. And here we are on yet another rail trip to Douglas, looking perhaps a year older. No perhaps about it, we were a year older. And last but not least, some friends of mine from the Vincent Motorcycle Club enjoying themselves. Bill Bewley, Bernie Stovin, Giovanni Cabassi and Bill, Bernie and John Kinley, all of whom were engaged in a classic motorcycle parade on the final day of the motorcycling activity for 2006, and two very willing mechanics. And so there we have it, the varied views of the Isle of Man and the varied people who enjoy its beauty and its leisure facilities. As a postscript, rest in peace those in this little film who are no longer with us. Bless them all.